Hello and welcome. This is VCD Roundtable episode number 56, and we are roughly 1 week after the big launch of VCF 9, and therefore we take today's episode to make it all around VCF 9 and whether there is actually a VCF 9 story for service providers or maybe not. So that's the topic for today's session. We will also quickly cover a few topics around Explorer and a few other things. But before we get into the weeds, quick hello, Sasha.
Hi, welcome.
Matthias.
Yo, guys. Hello and welcome. Finally, first episode with VCF 9.
Yes, so last week, Broadcom, was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago? No, 16th. 10 days ago.
Last week, 9 days ago.
So 9 days ago, Broadcom actually shared finally VCF 9 with the public. Beta was pretty restricted, so not that many people actually had access to it. And it feels like that not everything was visible in the beta. But nevertheless, they made a huge launch event, which also with completely different hosts again. So the old media team was kind of back in control and actually running that, expecting them to be at Explorer as well. And really different business units talking about VCF and sharing some light in the whole story around VCF 9 and in the end, also everything around what they have done. And I think the most important part out of the whole VCF 9 story is, first and foremost, it's basically Broadcom's first presentation of, hey, we did not stop research and development. We were quiet. We did not actually share that much. But in the end, when you look at the product, look at the integrations and the UI, clearly not everything is perfect, but you can see the vision from Broadcom towards having one product for everything. You can actually see how they are trying to integrate the products better and better. And you can also see what it makes for a difference. Similar scenarios, Microsoft, Oracle, and a bunch of others have been going through before. Once you decide that you are basically working on one product set and not on hundreds of individual products, you have a complete different set of possibilities. On the other side, there is a lot of talk around multi-tenancy. Don't get fooled by that. That is a very, very specific multi-tenant purpose and use case at the moment you can use it for. And there are specifics you need to keep in mind if you want to use VCF 9 in combination with Cloud Director and other topics. So that being said, I actually followed along the launch event together with Sasha in our UAE office. Matthias, did you join the session or did you just actually watch the recordings afterwards?
Nice or no. I attended the vExpert briefing, but I think that was in parallel, but just a different session. So I attended the vExpert briefing, and it was actually a good event. I specifically looked at the very small details on the right-hand corner of the slide, because most of the slides were flagged like in production or planned for certain features. So they presented many features, but many of those features were flagged as planned, so which they will come in one of the future releases. Nevertheless, overall, so my opinion is that VCF 9 is taking a straight approach to the single pane of glass management and capabilities. So have just one UI managing the whole instance. And of course, they try to address some very nasty topics like certificate management. So I have no idea how many years we were talking about. We need a solution to manage certificates for the whole infrastructure. There is no third-party tool out there which really addresses that need. And now Broadcom, at least my opinion, tries to solve it with VCF and the whole fleet management story. So I think that's major. Sasha, any first thoughts you want to share?
Yes, so a lot of changes compared to 5.2, starting with the VCF installer. So we have a new installation option now where we need to go with is the VCF installer. You are still able to use the user interface or you use API. So both are possible. From the first deployments now and lab development, what we did in the past few days, looks very good. Also more focused that you are able in an easy and documented way to deploy it in demo environments where you, for example, not have 10G networks. So it's now also for demo environments not supported by Broadcom, but it's possible to use it with 2.5G or 1G demo hardware. So that's very positive from my perspective. And another big point for the service providers is the complete topic with the that there is an, let's call it native way or old way to bring in with Cloud Director. So there will come an update for Cloud Director who supports it. And against all rumors in the past weeks and months is that we will not have resource pools. We have resource pools in VCF 9. So that's, from my perspective, very positive for the complete service provider business. We are not forced to go or directly deploy supervisor clusters, to go with namespaces that we need for the VCFA.
Yeah, but be careful with the Cloud Director part, because there is still the rumor out there that with the 10.7 VCD release, there is no upgrade path to VCFA. There is still a rumor out there, so be very, very careful which VCD version you're using and upgrading to.
So what I heard from a lot of guys now is that there will be also a version with 10.6.x who supports this native resource pool VCF 9 and 10.7 who supports the namespaces. So let's see, but as Matthias mentioned, be careful if you start to deploying or using something in production or upgrade your Cloud Director. Take a deep look in the complete release notes. I think that's an important part.
Also, the whole networking part in VCF 9 from deployment, I think they improved it, because with the old VCF releases like 4.x, 5.x, you were highly unflexible with the physical NIC configuration in the hosts, DVS configurations and alignments and stuff. And on top, the edge deployments. So with the old VCF, that was kind of a nightmare. And with VCF 9, they removed the whole edge management part from the VCF installer and moved it straight to NSX as a native deployment somehow, or kind of. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because it adds a lot of flexibility, whichever configuration you have designed and want to implement. So I think that's a good move. But you can still, and that's a good point, you can still manage the passwords and certificates for those edges with the fleet management. So that's a good move.
Did they move it also for the management cluster or only for the workload clusters?
I don't know. I mainly look into the workload domains, because honestly, I still do not use NSX on the management domain. So
yeah, but for example, you need it for some parts. So
yes, but only some. So try to not use it. So that's still my approach, but that's mine. But with the edges, I think that's a good move. and also the better flexibility in terms of which combinations are possible, like physical NICs per host and how many NICs per distributed switch and so on and so forth. So that was really very strict in the old ones. That's more flexible in VCF 9.
Yeah, we have also, we got
sorry.
also a lot of questions. So, or from a lot of V experts and so on, and how they should go with the download tokens, because with the new deployments VCF 9, you need the download tokens. So we try to figure out what is the case there and keep you up to date on the next roundtables, because that's a bit a challenge of most of the SEs who wants to test it, architects who wants to test it, because in both ways, if you want to create an offline repository or you want to use the online repository, you need this download tokens.
I haven't finished my NSX story so far, so I'm coming back for one last statement. With VCF 9 and the roadmap and the future, what I assume Broadcom foresees for the product, guys, start digging into the project and VPC implementation and features in NSX, because it seems that they will play a very important role in the future, especially for the integrations with all the other products within VCF, like VCFA. So maybe start digging into that topic and try to slowly with VCF 9 move your infrastructure to those new implementations in NSX, like VPCs and projects. All right, that's NSX. Any other NSX things, or want to move on to the other cool stuff?
No, I think it's important to actually take care of exactly what you said. It's like everything you see at the moment. There are a bunch of posts already out there how people build multi-tenancy around the VPC features and stuff like that, if it's only for the networking piece without VCD. So people are looking into building and setting up alternate solutions if they do not need really shared infrastructure or stuff like that. So people start to get creative out there, and I think this is clearly what Broadcom tries to push people towards. So you need to clearly adjust your design with it. On the other side, first feedback from people, well, I want to switch from NSX more to the infrastructure side, is feedback so far from the memory tiering with NVMe is sounds that this works actually pretty well for most people, also for people in their lab infrastructure, because typically on your lab hosts you have potentially not as much RAM, and then NVMEs are not that expensive. You can just actually do that. The other thing which I think is important to notice also with VCF 9, they seem to have started to think about people playing and testing with it from day one, because they allow the simple deployment where everything is just one instance and stuff like that. So I actually like that avoids that you have to mess around in the backend configurations to try to fix some of that. So it really gets more and more visible that Broadcom does not only look into, hey, what's going to happen at the very large enterprises, but what is also required for the people who are going to build the stuff and architect the stuff, etc. So I'm also confident that the license problem Sasha was talking about is pretty soon being sorted, because it seems like they really cared about on how they are going to deal with the community licenses and stuff like that. The other, I think, very interesting or important part, not so much for service providers, but so that everybody is aware of, is there is no vSphere or ESX 9, at least standalone. So you can only have VBF or VCF. That kind of seems to be Broadcom's way around, is like, how do we get you to actually get from your perpetual license to a subscription license, because you just can't get the product anymore. It's a bit like what Microsoft did in the last couple of years. Seems like someone has studied Microsoft's playbook here and just discontinue the products if you don't have subscription and bundle it like that. That doesn't affect the service providers so much, as long as they don't have customers running that in their data centers, because they will run into struggles from that perspective. But overall, for me, to be very, very honest, this is not coming as a big surprise. This was so foreseeable that these standalone licenses would be gone very soon. So it's more important now to see how this is going to continue. Sasha, anything on the Kubernetes private AI storyline which hit your eyes on launch day?
So absolutely. So it's there were rumors before, yes, and we talked about it maybe, but so all this stuff around about Kubernetes will become a main focus on VCF 9, all around containers. So they clearly says, yes, we will have virtual machines, but what the customer need and requested are containers, container runtimes, and so on. And what they did in the past was more the focusing on the real Tanzu stuff around pipelines, whatever, and all these things. Tanzu application platform. And now they are really also focusing on the runtime. Yes, we need a runtime in the environment. Going more and more to set this namespaces in the middle. So that's a big benefit. And additional to that, also we have the cluster management. So Tanzu Mission Control is back for all the vSphere customers. That will also help us a lot. I had some discussions now. The online version is officially now deprecated. And but we will have it back now on-prem. We can use it for backup management, for updates, for runtime, cluster management, and so on. And also for some security stuff. So let's see what's really there from the security perspective. But I would say Kubernetes is back and we can use it a lot, and that's a real good base for all the private AI stuff that comes now with VCF 9 and the next versions.
And it's now called VKS.
Yeah. But let's see if this is the last name. So I'm missing a bit the VCF, KS, or whatever in this name, but let's see.
I would advise at least not physically print any abbreviation list yet. It sounds like that is going to be a bit of so. But I think that's what I was just about to head over to. So besides all the news of VCF 9, there's a lot of other things happening in the VCF or VCPP program at the moment. I think the most significant one is Broadcom is exchanging license keys once again. New license keys will have a fixed expiration date, which links back to your contract. So for most service providers, that's going to be the 31st of March, 2027, because that's where your current CSP contract most likely is going to end. With that change, they also changed something which is very interesting. And I'm going to share just my personal opinion on what's going to happen here is they are reducing the allowed licenses from commit level to 125%. So meaning if you have 1,000 cores, you can get license keys up to 1,250 cores. That's it. So whilst the immediate people actually say is like, yeah, but with overage, etc., we need so much more. It's like reality when I look through at least a good amount of our CSPs, it's like majority of them are not many times for longer than just a few days that much above their core count. Clearly, if you only have 192 cores, it's a different story. But the more decent ones are not necessarily going to be affected by this. Why is this change interesting? It is interesting because there have been rumors, and I have never seen any contract or any final confirmation for that, but there have been rumors that during the transition phase, some service providers got exceptions allowing them to actually pay for overage exactly the same as for their commit course. And so they did never commit their course, or only a very small amount, and actually did use everything else in overage. That is going to be interesting now, because instead of changing the contract, if it is true at all, Broadcom is just going to solve it the other way around. If they use 10,000 cores in overage because they paid the same as others for commit, and they only have 500 in commit, then Broadcom is going to force them in a commit. That will be, then the question is, that a commit from now on, or is that already going to be a 3 years commit? That's just my take on that. Reality is, up until a few days ago, that was always messaged is like it will stick at 200. I was a bit surprised by the 125 as well. But it's also based on other talks, my feeling that Broadcom really wants to get away from any kind of license flexibility to a part where service providers like normal enterprise customers just have a fixed commit, and then they pay that commit and don't want to see any overage, etc. Because the 125 also matches to what is sounding like rumors, what Broadcom is going to allow, let's say, enterprise commercial customers to use as overage within their licenses from time to time, as long as it balances per year so that they can make system replacements, etc. So the number is not coming out of nowhere. But in the end, yes, it is a change. It's not fun. And you need to change them, and it's going to be interesting for some providers how they are going to deal with that. The other thing is the retroactive invoicing of VCPP licenses. And let me be bloody honest here, is like whoever was actually of the opinion that Broadcom would never actually charge for the old overage license. I know that some account managers and other people actually told some service providers that this would be happening, but the contract was always clear. And I have heard people actually saying already, it's like, yeah, but how and when? If you look into your VCSP contract, it actually says very clearly there that even if Broadcom can't prove what they have, they can basically do an estimate based on your current usage and other scenarios, and based on that, estimate what was your core count in the past, and you will have to pay for it. For me, the biggest concern with the retroactive invoicing is just how long it took them to do that, because that now becomes legally and financially a bit of an issue. But overall, I'm still surprised as how many service providers were kind of hit cold with this. It's like it was always clear that Broadcom is going to charge for overage. It was always clear that they can worst case estimate it. So I'm really sure it's like I'm more and more in this whole transition. Broadcom VMware is like it feels like no one is reading their contracts because it was clearly in there. It was not hidden. So this is again and again completely confusing for me how people can operate businesses and not reading contracts. But that seems to be next message is like we heard of CSPs using 300% overcommit during the transition to give plenty of buffer or something like that. Yeah, there are all kinds of stories around these overcommits, overages, and stuff like that. But the reality is I can only judge what the standard contracts have, even if we would have an exception, there would be an NDA on it, so that can't be shared. But a lot of these things is I'm not sure if they are really true, because every time you hear them again and again in the market, but on the other side, you then speak to people in the VCSP business unit at Broadcom, they more or less say it's like they don't know of that at all. So it can mean both things. They don't want to talk about it, or it's not true. So The thing we know for true is what's currently in the new contracts or in the changed contracts with the FAQ. 125% is your limit, and I'm pretty sure you will not get around the retroactive invoicing because there are enough rules in the contract which clearly say that they can do it. And not only that they can do it, they basically said from day one that they would do it based on the contracts. If you have an account manager which told you differently, then I would actually, in your case, actually grab me that account manager and make it his problem, not yours. Because if they constantly run around and actually give you these wrong statements, and this is not the first time in the last year and a half transition phase, is where we hear again and again that account managers in different geos, in different territories, in different sizes, are actually giving their service providers bad advice, and then in the end, the service providers get bitten by it. So sometimes you should question if the contract says something different. With Broadcom, by now you should have learned contract wins over verbal acknowledgement from an account manager. So that's my take on it. Sasha, Matthias, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so the problem is there is every time the trust between the account managers and the service providers, and that's currently a big challenge because we heard it a lot of times from service providers. Our account managers said us, hey, they will never go under. They cut this now on 200%, but they will never go down. And now we have it in written. They are going down to 125%. That will be a big challenge for many service providers, also from a planning perspective. So what happens? So if the license is running out of time or and they are no longer active, you have a big problem because, for example, if you have an disaster recovery environment, license only active licenses or active running hosts. So it's a big explanation in the FAQs. What is a host that must be licensed? And if you have licensed your active environment, have a second environment for disaster recovery. In the older days, you were able to create the keys and license it and only pay, for example, if you deploy an update. Now you have to license both environments because if your license keys are expired, they will not longer be a part of the cluster. But as Yves mentioned, it's written in the original contracts.
Good. Yeah. Again, it's interesting times, and I'm there is only one thing I'm 100% sure on. This was not the last change we were to see. And we hear again and again rumors on all kinds of different stories, but again, it's like the only advice I can always give is try to really be as reasonable as possible with rumors and storylines and stuff like that on how they would really make sense for Broadcom or not, because in the end, let's keep it like that. Broadcom is a commercial corporation. Broadcom is not in the business of just destroying VMware, which I still think many people believe in. It's like, I'm pretty sure Hock has better things to do with his money than just buying another company to destroy it. But he has a clear business vision, and that business vision might differ from what other people think how business should be run. And it is clearly an enterprise and scale business scenario. And I mean, I have been running around as an advisor, business advisor and analyst in the service provider space now for 15 plus years. And I was very often surprised by some people who said they were a service provider, and then you looked at it and you really is like, you are basically just running a bit more than my home lab. It is always, it's like, and I know Sasha and Matthias are smiling, it's always interesting when we have service providers who come to us for the first time and actually say, it's like, do you really think that you can handle larger environments? And then you go, it's like, yeah, really large environments. We don't have at hand our own internal test demo environment provisions 1,000 to 1,500 VMs every weekend. So But yeah, that's nothing we consider really large. We have designed large environments, but yeah, we don't do that on a daily basis. That typically shuts a lot of people off because we know that what we have as lab and demo environment is definitely larger than many of the CSPs we have been dealing with. So from that perspective, yes, it is interesting how people run their business. And to be honest, the same as it is in the normal, let's say, end user perspective, the question is, how are all these models going to look like in the future? However, the white label program for Broadcom is pretty much straightforward. They don't have to take care of the sub CSPs. Really, is like, I think from that perspective, it's pretty straightforward. We will see what's going to happen, but I think enterprise and commercial is like, yeah, there is a certain set of customers which are not high on the wish list for Broadcom. Broadcom, let's say, accepts that they stay, but they are not building products and focus on them anymore. They are only interested in commercial and enterprise customers who can and will afford VVF and VCF. It's that simple. That being said, we are heading towards, not summer break. For us, this summer is going to be pretty busy. Sasha and I are going to work on some crazy new storylines and products and services we are going to bring out in the next couple of weeks and present at Explore in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks. We are going to host our ComDivision and Friends dinner. We have already quite a list of signups I have seen this morning, so that is going to run full. But nevertheless, the other alternative option you always have is to join us at the poker tournament, and we will also soon have a meeting link. So if you want to meet with us in person, we will be able to share that in the next couple of days as well. We can then either book individual meetings with one of us at the conference, or you can actually try to get us as a double or so. So that being said, that's it for today from my end. Handing over to Sasha.
Yes, thanks for joining us, and I would say see you in Vegas.
Yeah, guys, thanks for joining. Maybe as a last statement, if you want to take a sneak peek into VCF 9, just use the hands-on labs, because the first VCF 9 labs are already available on HOL.
That's a good advice. And from what we have seen, you can also expect that the trainings, the official trainings, are going to be out very soon.
Nope.
Launch dates are already set for before Explore. Lab kits are
Q3. No, that matches everything. That's Q3.
Lab kits are in testing next week.
Globally. Yeah, I know, because it's end of June, so Q3 is next week.
Yep. So they are going to come. So from all I heard so far, before Explore, all 3 new classes will be available. So there will be training and everything else, and other opportunities to learn that. And also our challenge days in Architecture Think Tank will be updated to VCF 9, at least partially. So that being said, see you all in Vegas or anywhere else around the globe, and hope you join us for the next episode in roughly 2 weeks. And we are going to share the topics for that one pretty soon. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.